Hey everyone, and welcome to our live session on YouTube here today. This is the eighth video on the mini series on machine learning and artificial intelligence taken up here by Quant Masters. And in this particular video, we're going to take a look at career opportunities with machine learning. So far, just to point out, if this is the first video that you're stumbling upon, we have already provided around 7 videos on what exactly is, let's say, artificial intelligence, machine learning, active learning, deep learning, transfer learning, how important statistics is, and what kind of programming languages to use, and so on. We've already taken videos, we've already taken up a few videos on these. In this session, however, we're going to take a look at what career opportunities could you possibly pursue? What could be the possible opportunities that you can have if you go through the domain of machine learning? So let's start with it. So before we begin, one of the most common designation we often see is something called machine learning engineer. Now we're going to take a look at a few very common career opportunities with machine learning, and I will also give you an idea of how to get into these careers. And just to note, please remember these career opportunities are the highest paid compared to computer science industry standards as of today. Even in end of 2021, machine learning and artificial intelligence is the highest paid domain when it comes down to this. So let's take a look at this. To begin with, the first thing that you need to know, when you talk about machine learning engineer, each job will have its own roles. Each job will have its own description. If you match those roles, if you like those roles, you can go ahead for that job profile. So we're going to take a look at these job opportunities. What are the job roles? What would you need to do in order to be prepared for that job? So let's start with the first one. A machine learning engineer is involved everywhere, from the creation of machine learning models, that is developing machine learning models, or obtaining data, applying machine learning techniques for certain real world applications, review the code, bring it to production, that is put it online for any purpose, be in charge of the entire life cycle. This is what I mean. It will be everywhere. Initially identifying what is the data that is required, how do we obtain the data, what are the experiments that we need to do, what should we develop, what should we deploy, monitoring and maintenance, and solving issues. Everything you will be involved in. So from obtaining data to creating your own machine learning models to deploying it as well. So machine learning engineer doesn't often communicate with clients. Whenever you read machine learning engineer, you can immediately realize and understand that most often than not, compared to the next job designation, I'm telling comparatively, right? Some companies may have slight difference. So compared to the next job designation, you're not going to be in charge of meeting clients and getting information. There are other people in the company whose main job is to go ahead and meet clients and everyone. Your main job will be to get the data that is provided to you and use that data in order to create your own machine learning model and deploy it on the web or wherever the way the client requires. And with that deployment, you will be able to read, realize, and analyze what are the outputs. In other words, you're able to derive insights. So what's the point of machine learning? To get valuable knowledge, right? There's so many machine learning algorithms going on for COVID and everything. What's the purpose of it? The purpose is to get insights, knowledge of whether some, let's say, lockdown should happen or some travel ban should occur or not. So all of these have a purpose. All of these have a particular insight along with it. So that's exactly what is the purpose of a machine learning engineer. So if you want to be a machine learning engineer, if you're good at Python, if you're good at developing machine learning models, reading data uh, to create your machine learning models and getting the output from it, then you're probably going to be very good at this. And of course, there's one small responsibility, as you can see: communicate complex process to business leaders. So if a client or stakeholder is there, you may be required to communicate with them at times as well. But the majority of the work will be towards the development. On the other hand, there's a different domain, there's a different designation, often termed as data scientist. Just to remind, machine learning engineer and data scientist are not same. Machine learning engineer is often developing your models and taking your review and bringing it into production and so on. Whereas data scientist's main work is to create the entire statistical model itself. A data scientist may also need to communicate with customers more, communicate with the clients more as well. So data scientist, as the name suggests, a person who's a scientist in data. In other words, if there's a client, you're able to understand what does the client require, what is the output requirement of the client, what is the input data that this output requires, is it useful, is it not. If it is, how are you going to create the model? How will you communicate to the client that there's extra input data required? All these are part of works as data scientists as well. So once you have gotten your communication done, the next work is to develop. Again, this is where it is very common between machine learning engineer and data scientist. You will be developing your data model here as well. You'll be developing your machine learning model here as well. The only difference is you're also in charge of getting the data, retrieving the data, analyzing the data, figuring out what data is useful, what data is not, creating the model. And you may work with a machine learning engineer who will be then building it into production. So this may happen. So these are just a couple of small examples, and these are the two main or most often seen points of view. So just to point out, whenever you talk about machine learning engineer, know that it's more about machine learning rather than anything else. You're not much in charge of getting to know the database, getting to work with the database, or getting to visualize heavily or so on. Not much. Whereas a data scientist, you're supposed to you're supposed to create your model, you're supposed to visualize it a little, you're supposed to get the data in the right format, you're supposed to communicate with the clients and so on. There's another modification of this designation that's often called as data analyst as well. Data analyst is very similar to data scientist. Again, all of these look like they're very similar, so I'm just going to explain this in short. You have these designations called data scientist, then you have a data analyst, and you have a machine learning engineer on the other hand. Now, in short, they all overlap when they want to analyze certain data. They all overlap over there. A machine learning engineer will also need to analyze data before creating a model. A data scientist will also need to analyze data before creating a scientific model. So all of these are pretty much important in this terms. I think there has been a slight issue. The only difference The only difference, however, is that the major responsibility of data scientist, data analyst, and ML engineer are different. The major responsibility of a data analyst is to analyze data and visualize it. So, whenever you talk about analyzing data, you generally talk about obtaining data, filtering data, and modifying data in many ways, and then be able to get some valuable insights from it. It's not compulsory that a data analyst must use a machine learning technique. If a data analyst knows a little about machine learning, that's always an advantage. But the main responsibility of a data analyst is to obtain the data, filter it using various softwares, whether it is, let's say, pandas in Python, or other softwares like Tableau or anything like that. You can just have a look at Tableau. It's a freely available software that can also be used only to analyze and visualize data. Let's say, for instance, there needs to be a map to visualize which countries has a new COVID variant, or there needs to be a map visualizing which country has how much rainfall or something like that. All of these visualizations and analyzing is often done by a data analyst. Or you need a graph where you're supposed to show the stock market prices, because let's say a data scientist or a machine learning engineer has worked on the model, and you as a data analyst are required to visualize it and provide it in the right way, and so on. So most of the times the job role are pretty simple. Data analyst analyzes and visualizes the data. Machine learning engineer takes care of machine learning model developments, deployments, and getting the model into production for the clients. Data scientist, more than anything, is more often than not concerned on obtaining the data, going through creating some scientific, that is, in other words, statistical models to perform something with the data, and then take it ahead for deployment if possible. Now, followed by this, apart from data scientists, there's something else which is very, very specific. We learned about data analyst, data scientist, and machine learning engineer. We have something very specific over here called an NLP scientist. As the name NLP suggests, natural language processing. Think of this. You say, okay, Google, and your phone responds. You say, hey, Siri, and your phone responds. Your software has an artificial intelligence module which analyzes and recognizes natural language. It can process natural language and respond. If you say, what's the weather like in, let's say, New York today, or what will be the weather like in New York tomorrow, or even if you say something like, should I wear a raincoat today, should I wear a jacket today, should get an umbrella today, or something like that, it's able to answer, because it's able to process natural language and then respond. One of the first examples you can take of this is Eliza, which we have seen with screenshots in our first episode of this mini series. So you can take a look at Eliza as well and get an understanding of what exactly an NLP scientist may be required to do. As you would think, an NLP scientist is required to design, in short, NLP applications. Applications which are able to understand natural language either in terms of text or voice, and perform operations which end up being useful features. So a lot of real world operations are often done on this, as we see constantly. Like you have your your smart TV remote controls, which you can directly say like put on a particular movie and so on. So all of these are just examples of NLP as well. There's a lot of real world applications, a lot of real world usage of this: smart homes, smart televisions, smart refrigerators, smartphones, everything you see, smart internet of things, whatever you see, all of these use NLP, and there's a huge demand to make human life easier. Let's say you have Philips lights which change color just because you speak to it. Again, based on NLP as well. So it's immaterial of what accent you talk about. So it's basically a very, very important field in machine learning as of now. And if you're particularly interested only in this, you can go for that. There's also, similar to this, one more thing, that is computer vision experts or image processing engineers, where your work is to mainly perform tasks on images and videos, such as video processing analysts or video machine learning engineers and so on. So there's so many such criteria that can also come up. But I'm just taking this as a couple of scenarios. Now there's one more thing called business intelligence developer. Now this is slightly different from what we have talked. We mainly talk about business here and intelligence. So how are you going to apply intelligence in businesses? To do that, you need to communicate with businesses. You need to communicate with companies. Every company has their own CEO, CFOs, or a decision maker. So a business intelligence developer's job role is to communicate with the right stakeholder and inform them how artificial intelligence can help their company grow. So to do that, they need to provide what exactly their ML model does, what exactly their ML model works on. So you need knowledge about that. And you also need information on how exactly, in short, how exactly you're gonna represent it visually to the client. So a business intelligence developer often needs to translate business needs into tech specifications. In other words, when a business requirement is there, a business analyst, sorry, not a business analyst also you can say, or business intelligence developer also you can say, analyzes the business needs and converts it into technical specifications which a machine learning engineer or a data scientist or a data analyst can implement. Once it is developed, the business intelligence developer also helps build and deploy the solution, whatever it could be, and create support system with the help of the client as well. So the business intelligence developer may also be required to perform testing, perform any small works like analysis and visualization as and when required for the business. And since a business analyst or business intelligence developer will be the sole point of contact with the business, they're also required to create a good documentation to help understand the whole thing and visualize it in the right way for the clients as well as the technical team to understand. So this is the work of a business intelligence developer. And if a business intelligence developer provides the data, it's often also to software developers and software engineers as well. Moving away from this, there's something else here called human-centered machine learning designer. This is an upcoming job designation which is highly sought after. So there's a lot of requirements within this, a lot of requirements as you can see within this. So the idea of human-centered machine learning designer is where you're an ML engineer who can create and deploy machine learning models which are centered around humans and can help humans in their day-to-day activities, which can help humans directly, like let's say a smart watch based ML based analytics or a smartphone based ML analytics to identify something about health or anything like that. So I'm just taking one or two examples. So all of these machine learning applications that are developed from a human centric point of view to understand what a human requires, to make it comfortable, to make it easier, and to make it, let's say, much simpler to do a lot of things. So again, all of this requires a lot of intelligence in terms of there is knowledge in terms of TensorFlow, Keras and everything. And going ahead with this, there's a couple of other things. Often you may also require software engineering, or in terms of software engineer or software developer, you may still require the knowledge of machine learning. For instance, think about this. A software developer, or sorry, we're talking about software engineer. A software engineer communicates with the clients, gets the technical specifications from clients, creates the technical specifications, that is software requirement specification document, helps code, creates the documentation, works with the entire team of UI designers, UX designers, analysts, testers, developers, everyone, and communicates with clients to continually work upon the project. So if there is a software which does require machine learning, a software engineer would require knowledge of it as well. So this is where in certain companies, in certain particular companies, software engineer does require knowledge of machine learning because they may be working on a software which may have AI infused in it. So if it has AI infused in it, it requires developer who's able to create that as well, right? So this is where the final designation, that is software developer, comes in, where a developer will be creating whatever software it could be. Particularly, it could be a software which could have a part of AI in it as well. So these are the more common designations or job roles you can see when you work on machine learning, common career opportunities. And you can just see that these are hugely well paid, especially machine learning engineer, data scientist, data analyst, NLP scientist, business intelligence developers, and human-centered machine learning designer. So I hope this has given you a clear idea of what are the common job designations you can expect from this. So if you want to know more about how you can get those, how you can create that, we have a particular course that we're starting on December 2nd. This particular course is an internship course on machine learning where we're going to be training you on machine learning to begin with. We will train you from the very scratch, from the basics of machine learning till you're an expert at things like deep learning, transfer learning, everything. So you're going to be trained from the scratch of Python. Even if you don't know Python, you will still be able to learn it from scratch, and you will be able to reach a level where you are able to create your own deep learning models as well. And this will not just be from one or two programs. We'll be providing weekly assessments, weekly assignments, weekly data sets for you to try and work on these by yourself as well. And we will also be giving you a capstone project at the end to express your skills and cap off the internship in style. If you'd like to know how to register for this, do check out the information of this video and check out our website. You'll be getting more information on this. And if you're watching this video first, there are a few more videos in this mini series that I would highly recommend you to watch, so you can get to know through the playlist of this, where we have information on what is artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and so on. So do go ahead. If you're interested in this, do give a check in the website in the description below and see if you like it. We'll be happy to have you in our batch. So until we see each other in another session, have a good time and make your career happen in the best way you possibly like.